All right. Good evening, everybody. Come on in and find a seat. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you. Thank you for making time to be here this evening. An unusual gathering, to be sure. Kind of has been evolving as we go. And, it's Thursday evening. And I'm going to just say for online presence, when we post this later, Thursday, March the 12th, 2020, we're at the end of the week, almost. It's been quite a week, hasn't it? For everybody, probably. And it's been fast moving, and things have been changing even in these last 24 hours. Lots of news and information and a lot to keep up with, to just put it bluntly. And I don't know how you cope with that kind of stuff or how you handle it, but, I kind of get to moving faster and faster and faster, and it's like, I just feel a need as we get started tonight to just pause, take a deep breath. We're going to have a word of prayer, and then we're going to get started, okay? Let's pray together. Lord, I thank you for the church and for the gathering this evening. And Lord, we have a lot to celebrate and talk about tonight. We also have some other things that are just from a practical nature, things that need to be addressed. And there's a lot going on that's affecting our nation and our world. And we just want to be reminded tonight that you're in control. We know that coronavirus didn't take you by surprise. We trust you tonight. We just want to acknowledge your presence here with us and invite you to have your way. I pray that you will bring clarity in the things that are spoken, and that you will help us to hear and receive all that is presented. And as we leave here tonight, may we be thankful for this time together. And we believe you're going to use it and in ways of communication, I believe, and even in inspiration and encouragement as we think about the good work that you're doing among us. And so we're grateful, and we give you praise tonight. In Jesus' name. Amen. We had board meeting on Tuesday evening, and one of the things that we addressed in that meeting was how we would respond with the coronavirus. Little did we know that some of that would need to be implemented so soon. And for those of you that maybe are not aware, Governor Holcomb issued a decree today banning gatherings of over 250 and over in the state of Indiana. And so some of the things that will be taking place over these next few weeks, and this will be an evolving process, there's no question about that. We'll do our best to keep you informed in a variety of ways, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But we have documented some of this and handed it to you on your way in so that you can kind of see how we're going to be responding and how we're going to be trying to make sure to have all the environments clean and safe. We're going to have hand sanitizer at the high traffic areas. We're really going to be working on doing everything we can to adhere to all the guidelines that have been presented. Our greeters, they're not going to seem as friendly as usual, okay? They're not going to be shaking hands. They're not going to be hugging. I felt like I needed to put a disclaimer on. I hadn't seen my wife. I've been out of town, and I saw her in the lobby, and I gave her a hug. I broke policy there for just a minute, but and maybe even a little peck on the cheek. Who knows? But she said, if I've got it, she'll take it. But I did. Am I turning red? Am I turning? It's all the lights. But anyway, there's some guidelines spelled out there so that you can kind of understand what we're doing and how we're responding to some of those needs. And we want you to understand, we want you to do what you feel comfortable with as far as being here and things. We're going to be instructing on hand washing and all the guidelines that are spelled out there. There will be the possibility that the schedules are going to shift and change along the way, and we're going to do our best to communicate that to you. I am going to ask that not everybody call or text me personally to see if we're having church or if whatever's going on. Keep an eye on the website. Go to thepoint.com. Keep an eye on our Facebook page. You can also, if you don't have the app, you can get it. Go to the Point is the way you search that. Download that, and there'll be some push notifications maybe going out that way, text messages, and then all church email. But this coming Sunday, let me give you a little bit of instruction about that before we get into what we're going to be talking about tonight. This coming Sunday was family worship. It's spring break. We realize people will be out of town perhaps, and maybe that's going to change now. But with family worship, typically the nursery is in operation. With the band that is in place, we're going to be closing down all of the children's ministries like we were anyway, including the nursery, which is an add-on. And then we will be forced to restrict no more than 250 people at worship should you choose to come. Now, no pressure. We would encourage you, take advantage of the online presence. Aren't we thankful that over the last few months we've been able to implement the streaming option and have that available for us? So if you have any hesitation, you can stay home, you can watch online, and you just do that from the media tab on our website. And you can give online. We thank God for that opportunity as well. But, please, if you've had any remote possibility, you've been exposed or aren't feeling the best, we don't want you to take any chances, and we want you to be respectful of everyone else. And so do what you're comfortable with, and we are going to do everything we possibly can to keep you informed over the next few weeks. Because, as I said, it's a moving target. It's changing moment by moment, and we're just doing our best to keep up at this point. So at this point, as of right now, we intend to have services Sunday, only worship, and we will limit that to the first 250 people that are here. And so that kind of sums up, I think, the coronavirus update. You've got handouts.
Yeah, I would just say, Jason, if we have a part in our policy that we're going to do our best between services to wipe down doors, handles, all of that kind of stuff. And if you would be willing to assist in that process, take a Sunday and do that, we will have a sign-up sheet out in the lobby after tonight. We'll supply you with everything you need, but some additional hands to help with that in between services will be very helpful. So just keep that in mind.
Very good.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. Very good. We'll have a little Q&A at the end, and we can include some of discussion at that point if some other things come up.
That will be 250 per service, not
Right.
just 250 Sunday, but
Exactly.
in one gathering. Does that make sense?
250 people, that's the ban that has been issued, anything 250 or above. So we will be allowed to have up to 250 in both services, 9:30 and 11 o'clock this coming Sunday. That's for March the 15th, I'm thinking here. All my days are running together, so. Okay, well, now let's talk about what we originally intended to talk about here this evening. There will be several that will be joining me here on the platform, and I think you guys just ought to go ahead and come on up now if you would. It's lonely up here, and I just would love for you to come and join me. These are some exciting days in the life of the church. There's no question about that. And sometimes I guess I feel like a broken record when I'm talking about how excited I am about what goes on here at the Point, because God has been blessing, and it is an incredible blessing for me to be the pastor of this church. I thank God for what He's doing among us. It is unique, it is special, and He's the one that gets all the glory for the great things that are happening here. Tonight, our goal is to try to do our best to bring everybody up to date on some exciting happenings. We have been absolutely thrilled with the incredible growth that we've experienced over the years. And, those trends have been increasingly positive in recent months. In fact, we're even seeing stronger growth in the first few weeks of 2020 than we've been seeing. And in a moment, Steve Salo, a member of our church board, is going to present some attendance trends that have brought us to where we are tonight. Another member of the board, Skylar Early, and our beloved Jeff Llewellyn, will be providing information. He wants to say some things that are not kind. Did you sense that? I did.
Oh, I will say them later.
Yeah. These guys are going to be presenting some information and some solutions to us. They're going to tell us about some information you heard and were a part of with the TCI survey. Many of you were a part of that. We had several hundred people take a survey. We had many people involved in some focus groups, and they'll be giving us some results from that. Our creative arts pastor, Joel Burbrink, on the other end, will be sharing some various solutions that we've considered to allow us as a church to continue fulfilling our mission and pointing people to Jesus on the highest level possible. And as I said, at the end of the presentation, there'll be some time for Q&A, and then there will be some breakouts of various ministry areas where you'll be able to answer some other questions or get answers to questions. And we'll also have an FAQ sheet, frequently asked questions that you'll be receiving on your way out today. We really are celebrating some great things. The people of the Point have a 120-year history. Think about that. 120-year history of effective ministry in our community in this surrounding area, founded in 1900. The congregation has, through the years, demonstrated bold and courageous faith and doing whatever it takes to reach our mission field for Jesus. I think, in my opinion, the rebranding in 2014 was one of the most recent decisions that have been made to facilitate continued outreach and growth among us. James, the brother of Jesus, made this statement before the Jerusalem Council. He said, "It is my judgment, therefore, that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God." We've taken that to heart, and we've been doing everything we can to make it easy for people to turn to God. As a church, we have proven that we're willing to give up our own comfort and adapt our methods while still holding tightly to the message in order to spread the life-changing truths of the gospel to those who haven't heard it. And as I look around this room tonight and every Sunday in both services, I see people who are here because of those decisions that have been made. And I thank God for that. I get fired up when I begin thinking of the people, though, that will be here tomorrow because of the decisions that we are making today. Bold and courageous decisions in the past have brought us to this place. And I'm going to ask Steve Salo to tell us more. Okay?
Thank you. Good evening. If you know me, I'm a numbers guy, and I love numbers, so this is my best part that they could have given me. So we're going to be reviewing the average attendance numbers over the past few years, and we have a graph that is up on the screen behind me. And if you'll notice, it has the 4 previous years' average monthly attendance. The lowest line is that blue line, and that's 2016, during which we were averaging in the probably the 500s or so. 2017 and 18 saw us bumping up into the 600s, and then that highest line, the yellow line, is 2019. And you'll notice, especially after Easter, how we've had a significant increase in our attendance. And it's exciting, and these are all great news. And then, as Pastor said, if you look at that one short little line in the upper left, that little blue line, it shows that we've been averaging over 760 for service in the first 2 months of 2020. So the numbers are great. There's a chart also up above, and those numbers are really hard to read unless you have it right in front of you. But you'll notice that in January of 2016, we were at 567. In January, this past January, we were averaging 770, which is nearly a 40% increase. And so that's just really exciting. The bottom line is that our attendance is growing at a significant and a consistent rate, and we see no reason why it cannot continue to happen. if we should continue at the same rate, we could easily reach our seating capacity within just a few short years. And all this represents is that we're reaching souls for Christ. And so for all of this, we could say a yoo-hoo. So can I get a yoo-hoo? Yoo-hoo! All right. But there's more to numbers. Behind the numbers are stories. And for most of us who are regular attenders, if we had recently been at a well-attended service where it was really crowded, and we went home and someone asked us, well, how was service today? We'd say, wow, it was great. There were so many people there, I could hardly find a parking spot. And then I walked into the lobby. It was so crowded, I had a hard time getting to the bathrooms, and the check-in lines for the kids were long, and wow, even when I went to sit down, I could hardly find a seat. What, isn't that incredible? And so that's what maybe some of us long-term attenders might say. But if you ask a recent visitor, they may have a different perspective. They look at things through a different set of lenses. And sorry, I only have so many hands here. The visitor, if they're asked, they may be saying the very same words but with a different intonation. If they were asked, they'd say, oh, wow. When I got there, I could hardly find a parking spot. And two, man, that lobby was so crowded and I could hardly get to the bathrooms. It took forever to check in my kids. And when I finally got to sit down, I could hardly find a seat. Oh, that was uncomfortable. So we all see things through a different perspective. And we're here to reach people for Christ. And so we really need to keep those visitors and first-time people, attenders, in mind. So church research organizations have given a rule of thumb that if you've reached 80% of your seating capacity, you're probably not going to grow much more. And right now, we're already, if you look at the numbers, we're already approaching 84%. And it's mostly because of that discomfort that people feel. Face it, we all feel a little uncomfortable, especially in this day and age with coronavirus, going into a really crowded space that we're unfamiliar with. And that's the way we need to see things through the eyes of our first-time guest. So, in summary, we're excited about the numbers, the growth that we're experiencing. So for that, we can say, woohoo! But on the other hand, we need to look through a different set of lenses and look at the challenges that we have to deal with the issues that it does bring.
Good, good. Let's just give the Lord praise, shall we? Because every one of those numbers represent a person. And that's, it's been said, we count people because people count. And I love the fact that those numbers represent individual stories. And we thank God for each one of those. So there's much to celebrate. I feel like in so many ways, we're a part of a present day miracle. As you look around, there's about 350,000 churches in the United States. Of those, 85%, depending on which survey you read, but most are right in that range, 85% are either in plateau or decline in their attendance. And of those that are growing, the average growth rate's about 2%, and much of that's by transfer growth, not really outreach. So, the point is we have some really significant challenges ahead of us, but these are good problems. We're facing some challenges that I think any church would love to face. we're asking the question, how do we make room for more? That's really the question. And God's bringing people to the point, and we want them to know Jesus, men, women, teenagers, boys, and girls. And the point is, the mission has never changed. We're pointing people to Jesus because we believe he is the point of life. And even as the world gets, worked into a tailspin, we know that God's still in control. Like I said when I prayed a moment ago, he can be trusted. And while we intend to be responsible in our response to the issues that are at hand, we do not intend to live as people of fear. We're going to be people of faith and hope and love. These are the principles that have guided us in the past, and these are the principles that will continue to guide us. In times like these, it's important for us to seize the opportunity to share the hope that is within us. We should respond differently than the world. I believe some unique opportunities are ahead for sharing the gospel. I hope you'll take that message to heart and give that consideration. There are some unique opportunities probably every single one of us will have to share the gospel message. I saw a post from one of our senior adults who happens to be in Florida right now this very day, and she posted something about, people are concerned about the coronavirus. I would like to introduce you to my friend Jesus. And I thought, what a wonderful witness. See, these events that we're watching unfold every day in our world represent more than a health crisis or a financial disaster. These things also point to a very personal spiritual struggle that people continue to face. And we're reminded in the midst of it all of our own morality, and that while the future here on this earth may be uncertain, our hope in Jesus Christ remains intact. We know, because of what we believe in the scriptures, that life on this earth is not going to last forever. But we will. And that's why we're steadfast in our commitment to continue proclaiming this message of hope that we not only celebrate on Easter Sunday here in about 4 weeks, but that we celebrate every day of the year. And that's the hope that there is a God in heaven who loves us. And that's the hope that our relationship with him can be restored, because that relationship originally was damaged and severed by sin. But God loved us so much, as you know, that he sent his only son to pay the penalty for that sin, and he offers each one of us the free gift of eternal life. He wants the world to know that message, and it's up to us to deliver that message. That's what we've been called to do. We're going to do our part to tell them. And so I just want to tell you tonight, I don't think there's any reason for us to panic. There's no reason for gloom and doom. The future is bright. Jesus said it. And he warned us there would be days like this. In John chapter 16, verse 33, he said, here on this earth, you're going to have many trials and sorrows. But take heart. Take heart, church. Take heart, Christian people, because I have overcome the world. See, when somebody predicts their own resurrection and then pulls it off, don't you think we ought to pay attention to what he says? It just seems like the thing to do. And the point's been called by God to proclaim this truth until he comes again. And I think we would all agree there is a sense, and there is really no doubt, that that day is closer now than it's ever been before. And so we're not going to go out on a hillside and just sit there and sing Kumbaya, waiting on the Lord to return. We have work to do. We have work to do. Many more people need to know the transformation Christ can bring to their lives, to their marriages, to their family, to their finances. They need to know that there's hope in Jesus Christ. And it's up to us to proclaim that hope until he returns. Whether it's another 120 years from now, or 50 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 10 weeks from now, or tomorrow, or maybe even tonight. We're today, right now, building a wonderful legacy. There was a wonderful legacy that was left here by our predecessors. We have a long history, over a century. And it's my prayer that those who come behind us will find that we've been faithful to God's call as well. And I'm going to tell you, you're about to hear some incredible, encouraging, exciting news, the results of our Transforming Church Insight survey and the focus groups. And Skylar Early and our own Jeff Llewellyn are going to tell us all about it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start off with the TCI survey, the Transforming Church Index. And, you know, we as leadership saw a number of months back that this trend was continuing and accelerating, and determined that we needed to take some preemptive steps to plan for the growth that God's bringing. And so we decided that we needed to gather some data, talk to some folks who could help guide us in formulating a plan for the future. And so we engaged a group called Aspen to help us with that. They said, we know just the thing to get you started with data gathering, and it's called the Transforming Church Index. So we launched into that. And how many of you participated in that online survey, Transforming Church Index? Yeah, cool, good. And we had an incredible response. They said you need to have at least 25% of your average church attendance in responses to that survey in order for the results to be valid. We had 52% of our average attendance respond to that. So kudos to you guys for turning out and giving us your insight and your thoughts. We needed that input. It was so valuable. It was just priceless in helping us get a sense for where we are as a congregation and the direction that we need to go for the future. So after the survey closed, I was able to be on the phone with the guy who kind of coordinates that whole organization. We saw him on our video when we first launched the survey, Kevin Ford. And he got on a conference call with me to unpack the results. Now, here's what I want to tell you. His first statement to me on the phone was, he said, I looked at your results, and he said, I almost put a for sale sign in my front yard, packed up my family, and moved to Seymour. He said...
That's where all the cool people are.
That's right. Yeah. He said, I have not seen results that like the ones that came from your church in years. And he's been doing this for 25 years. He said, out of the hundreds and hundreds of churches that we surveyed, yours is just like off the charts. So you've got a pie chart there in front of you that represents our results to the survey. And they were, the questions that you answered were categorized in different areas, and you can see those areas on the outer edge of that circle. And then you can see that white dotted line in the middle. That means that 50% of the churches that responded had scores inside that white circle, and 50% were outside of the white circle. Now you see there's only one category there where we were inside the white circle. And I'm going to talk about that one in just a minute. He said the gold standard for us is we know a church is really hitting the mark in an area if they're at the 65th percentile. Now, if you look at the results, we're in the 80s and 90s. That means out of all the thousands of people that responded to this survey representing different congregations, you know, if we're at a 93rd or 98th percentile, that means only 2% of the responses were higher than ours. That's pretty amazing stuff. It is incredible. It's a great thing to celebrate. God is doing some amazing work here, and the church is aware of it and excited about it and looking forward to the future. Now, if you're like me, the first thing when I opened that up, I looked at the lowest score. That's where I went immediately. I thought, finances, what is up with that? I just kind of skipped over all the great stuff and focused right in on that. So we talked about that a little bit as we were unpacking that. And I'm sure you probably don't remember all the questions, but the question that was driving that finance response was basically a question of, I know what's going on in my congregation with regard to finances. It's not necessarily an indication of whether finances are good or bad. It's an indication of whether or not I feel informed about that. And so that was a great learning for us, because finances are good, but we haven't done a great job of communicating that to you. And so that was an incredible learning for us. And even though it was inside that white line, it wasn't necessarily a bad response. It was good information to have. So that's kind of the TCI survey in a nutshell. We had like 40 pages of data to unpack, but it's all summarized in that pie chart for you. And so thank you for responding. It was incredible. It was an amazing blessing. In addition to the TCI survey that we did, we also conducted some focus groups to get more data, more face-to-face data. So Skylar's going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so the focus groups that we conducted, that's going to show the qualitative side of the information and actually people's voices that attend here. It's a cross-section of the congregation. I was in one of the groups, and in our focus group, I think we had someone that had been attending for less than a month. For sure, it was less than 2 months. So very new people, people in leadership positions, non-leadership positions, longtime attenders. And it was about a total of 50 people throughout the congregation in 6 different focus groups. So we will go through several slides that you guys can follow along with on the highlights. A couple of the highlights were, what are we doing well? Are we on a clear path of growth as a church? So one of the points that we heard was, if we keep growing, if the church keeps growing, we've got to do something to be able to alleviate some of that pain that Steve talked about as you walk into the worship center on Sundays. But we do feel like a church that's planning, we're moving forward. And this is a great bullet point. It's not about me, it's about the people who aren't here. So instead of focusing inwards on how we can make us more comfortable here, how can we reach more people? Let me see. Ready for the next one. I'm not sure how this works up here.
You're doing good.
Am I?
Yeah.
Okay, there we
There you
go.
go.
Discomforts of the facility. So this was probably everyone's topic that they were most ready to talk about, I would say, in the focus group. So again, as Steve has pointed out, you probably feel it sometimes. The lobby's too small. With the people, with the growth that we've had here in the worship center, everyone leaves at the same time. They want to visit, but it's small. The lobby's small. The layout is tricky. As you walk in, you have an immediate zigzag in the hallways, congestion in the worship center. The front entry lacks invitation and identity. There with the awning and that entrance came up several times. Nursery is near that front entrance, which could be a safety issue, especially as we continue to grow. And then the space in the gym could be utilized better as well. Whatever you pop up, I'm ready to go. Okay, well, I'm going to go to ministry opportunities available if we renovate. So if we were to renovate, what opportunities do we have as a ministry? The Family Life Center. Okay. All right, the Family Life Center that we have, the gym, it's underutilized, and sometimes the worship center is cramped. Some people indicated that they'd like a sanctuary where they felt closer to the stage. A better lobby and main entrance, again, was brought up. And then I'm not sure if people have noticed, but we don't have an elevator here. I think that comes up every once in a while, right? Continuing on with that, a more organized feel for the kids' ministries. We have kids downstairs, we have kids upstairs, we have kids across over in the Family Life Center. So kind of unifying that. The ability to host community events. And then the parking lot, again, spaces in the parking lot, sometimes that tends to fill up, or you have to walk a long way to actually get into church. for the first-time guest experience, again, Steve kind of went through this, Steve Salo. Parking can be frustrated. On the west side over here, it does fill up quicker. Better wayfinding for someone that's brand new. Where do I go to drop off my kids? Or where is a bathroom, even, for instance? So better wayfinding and landmark signage, and then confusion at the children's drop-off. So as we grow, as we continue to grow, looking at the kids' drop-off and the check-in and even the pickup process, that can be confusing. So if you were to invite someone, what might be a barrier that you would experience due to the building, due to the facility? So again, as we grow, we have our nursery right out there at the front entrance. And how scalable is our security? How scalable is our check-in process with the layout that we have in the building? So that was a continued concern. Again, with the kid separation, the middle school is over in the gym, and then not knowing which doors to enter. The awning is not special, so we need to get a special awning.
Yeah.
But I think that the general feel was that awning doesn't scream, this is the main entrance into the hospital. This is where you come in. It's not that magnet
Or the
for
church.
bringing people in.
The hospital or the church.
I work at the hospital. I'm on coronavirus overload. Yeah, we'll stick with the church. Thank you, Jeff.
Just here to help.
Are we on a clear plan of growth? We went through that, and let's see. I think the focus group highlights what are we doing well. So really time to brag about the church, the ministry to families, and the orange concept that we use, where the church is yellow, it's the light of the world, and then red is the heart of the home, and combining those into orange. The contemporary modern worship, Joel came up numerous times, Joel and the worship crew. It's fresh and exciting. It feels like home. We're not afraid to make changes for the good of the church, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Another positive was small groups that launched in 2019. What's the community think of the point was another topic, and we're really starting to get out into the community with For Seymour. It's been a fantastic series that's continued on. The point is known at the schools by both students, teachers, faculty members. RIP medical debt affected the community. It was out there. People were talking about it. We were able to have an impact. And then even someone mentioned 2 to 3 years ago, someone might have considered this church as self-serving and looking, again, inside at ourselves rather than looking out at the community. And that it seems like it's changing now, was that person's perception. So we'll keep it church-focused, not hospital-focused. I'll turn it over to Joel to talk a little bit more.
Awesome. So I think with anything, correct, when you have a problem, you search for a solution, correct? There are always solutions to the problems that we have. Some time ago, for those who may not know, my brother and his family attend the church as well, and they have most of their lives. And he has 4 kids, and so a lot of times they're home from college and they're with him. And if you've ever seen some really big boys walking around here, they belong to my brother. They're big. And I was out in the barn talking to him one day, and he said, hey, I think we might have a problem at church. And I said, oh, what's that? Fill me in. And he goes, well, I'm having a really hard time finding a seat with my family when we all come in. And he said, I don't know if you've realized that or not, but he said, when we come in most weeks, it's really hard for us to find a seat, and we got to walk all the way down front, and then we even get down there, and sometimes we can't even all find one together. And so my immediate response to that was, well, if you weren't late every Sunday, you probably could find a seat. However, that did present that honestly, beyond their tardiness, which happens on a regular basis, beyond their tardiness, there really is a problem right here, really for a family. And the church put an emphasis on really trying to reach the family some time ago. And so that means in a family, there usually is more than just one person or a couple that come to sit. So I have the opportunity to look out and to see families on a regular basis searching to find a seat together. And so that's our problem. Okay, what are some solutions to that? And so as leadership began to see the numbers that Steve talked about, we began to realize we maybe need a solution a little bit quicker than what we had intended. And so what could some of those solutions be that we're a little ways out from Aspen? What could some of the solutions be that could be a little, could come a little quicker with what we have here? And so I'm going to talk about some of what those solutions are that we looked at. And so we thought, okay, we could do what we're doing again, right? So you just do it again. So we add a third service. Normal for us on Easter, we've had 3 services. This past Christmas Eve, we had 3 Christmas Eve services with almost 1,200 in attendance for those. So we understand what that is. We don't do it on a regular basis, but we could do that. And so we looked at third services on Sunday. It really is, studies have been done that prime opportunities for families to worship that really are on Sunday, as the studies show. And so we looked at when can we add them. Well, 9:30 and 11, right? We already have services, so we got to go possibly before that. So we looked at what does it look like to have an 8 o'clock service. And so we began to unpack that and look at the positives of that and the negatives of that, and could that work for the point? Well, the point's a family church, and so we really want to meet the needs of that family, which can you really do that without kids programming? Well, can you really have kids programming going on at 8 in the morning with an entire another team? And if you have small children, are you getting them up and getting to church at 8 a.m. on Sunday? Most of you that have kids are shaking your heads no. That's correct. So we thought, is that really a viable option for who we are? Okay, so we kind of just tabled that for a minute. So we thought, okay, let's add a third service option on Sunday. Let's move the other direction. Okay, so let's go to 12:30. So we'd have 9:30, 11, and a 12:30 service. Okay? Well, yet again, we run into a couple problems of we desire to be a family church. We want to provide ministry and programming to kids of all ages, birth through. And we look at, okay, do we really want to bring kids into programming at 12:30? And also we need a whole nother team, okay, of people to run that service again. And do we have enough staff and do we have enough volunteers to be able to pull a 12:30 service off? And if you work in the children's department, you know on any given Sunday there are lots of open spaces and there are lots of open holes where you need them filled just for our 9:30 and 11. And so it's like probably for that to happen, starting a service at 12:30, right in the middle of lunch, okay, and for teams of people may not be the best viable option, but we'll just kind of table that for now. So we looked at, well, when would be another time of day? So we looked at Saturday evening services. There are churches in Indianapolis that have done it. Usually you find those a little more in metropolitan areas, but there are churches who've explored Saturday evening options. Could we worship in this space on Saturday evening? And so we looked at all the pros and cons of what that would mean. I think you have to realize for the teams that serve, okay, not for just the person that gets to come, but for the teams that serve, their now entire weekend is tied up. So they're here early on Saturday for a rehearsal. They're here for service on Saturday if they're on the arts team, and then they're here all the way through Sunday morning up until noon. And so very taxing upon those teams to do that. Are we large enough to support that? Do we have enough people to support enough teams to do that? The same thing with kids programming. Now we need a whole other kids program that's happening on Saturday evenings. Well, we're having a difficult time getting volunteers into those 9:30 and 11 services for all the spaces that we need, because guess what's happening upstairs? We're growing here. So the children's programming upstairs is continuing to grow. They need more small group leaders. They're having more and more kids, okay? More and more preschoolers, more and more grade schoolers, lots of babies in the nursery. Great problem to have, but if we do Saturday night, we need to replicate that all again if we want families to come. So then we thought, well, let's get really creative, okay? Let's look at a third service option that would happen at the same time. So we've got a 9:30 service going on in here, and we've got an 11 o'clock service going on in this room. Let's do what we're doing in this room again at the same time, okay? Because kids programming is already happening, all right? Those people are already here. It's happening. Where could we do another service? Well, the only other really large space, open space we have is our family center or the gym across the way. And so it's like, could we look at utilizing that? Our highest attended hour, statistically for the most part, is second hour. So let's look at a third service option, second hour, in that space. And could we accomplish that? And I think there were lots of pros to that, and I think that there were lots of cons to that, and we began to weigh out. And it seemed as conversations were happening, that solution really began to rise to the top. Because with technology, we could pull that off. Pastor could be live over there, and he could be via video over here, second service. But then maybe the next week he's live over here, and he's via video over there. Okay? And so we would need a whole nother arts team. But as we began to look at it and began to talk, they thought, well, we could probably pull that off a little easier than a third option on Sunday, in that it would just be a different group of people on that given week. Okay? That would pull that off. So that option began to rise to the top as perhaps the best option that we had thought of at that time. And yet we realized, as we began to think, there were even more options out there that we had not thought about. And so the other option that began to surface is, well, we have a space across the way, square footage-wise, that is substantially larger than what this room is. And so as we looked at that third service option, we realized that that same service at 11 o'clock had a lot more room to even grow beyond what was in this room. And so we began to look at what would it look like for options to worship over in what is our family center in that space at 9:30 and 11. How many people could we fit into that space during our worship times? As we began to run numbers and began to look at things and began to realize in square footage differences that room being substantially larger, we can actually fit well over 150, between 150 and 200 more seats in that space due to square footage than what we can fit in this room. And so then I think as leadership began to look at all of the options, and all of the options were presented, those two options of a third service simultaneously at 11 rose to the top, as well as would we move our worship center for in the meantime, we're going to say, as we're growing in the meantime to that space, and those two options began to rise to the top. And as they did, then the leadership, as they gathered together and talked about their vision for the year and the vision day that they have every year out at Spring Hill Camp, really began to wrestle with what is going to be the best option for our church between those two. And you saw within the leadership, and as they thought and as they had prayed, as everything, really one of those options began to rise above the other. And there began to be incredible unity around the option that why don't we have that room, you can fit 200 more people in it on a Sunday. It's already there. Let's really consider moving our worship experiences at 9:30 and 11 into that space. Now that sounds easy, right? When you just say that, oh, how hard can that be? Let's just do that. But it began to rise to the top as perhaps the best option. And so the board really began to feel unified around that. And one of the members of the board had made a point. He said, if you come at 9:30 here to the point, and he said for the next 2 years that we're even in this Aspen project, and they're talking and they're trying to discover and they're doing all this stuff, and you really don't have to change anything, but you've just come to that service, you really don't understand the need perhaps for change. You've just attended that 9:30 service and you're doing what you're doing, and then in this 11 o'clock hour it's begun to fill up, but how are we going to filter people over to that option? How do we make that third service option not feel like the B service? How do we make it feel like, well, you're not being punished to go over there because this is full, or however that is, and explore all those options? He said, if all of the church together made a change, he said everyone together would realize the need for it. Because we've done it as one body, and we've done it in unity. And he said, I think for everyone to experience the change together would bring incredible unity around that. And I think the board really circled around that thought of unity could come if we all experience the discomfort together, not just a sect of people that, hey, go over there because there's not room for you here, or that sort of thing. And what do we do, as that 11 o'clock hour continues to fill in, or the 9:30 hour, what are we going to do? And so it really felt like, let's land on the option of moving our worship experience here at the Point for both of those services on a Sunday morning over to our Family Life Center. And I'll turn it over to Pastor.
Well, lots of exciting stuff, and you're taking it in quickly, and I apologize for that because this has been going on for quite a while, as you can tell, and I hope that this process helps you understand the journey that we've been on as leaders in the church for quite a little while. And do you realize that the church is the only organization in the world that really exists for people that are not yet a part of it? So many organizations are for the membership, but the church is for people that aren't even here yet. And I love what Joel mentioned about the unity. In that conversation I'd heard, and we are a family, and we are a church united. And that unity has been in place for a long time, and it's going to continue, I believe, as we move forward in these exciting days. The due diligence has been done. I mean, lots of work, prayer, discussions have taken place. We've worked through this process together, and we believe that time is of the essence because that's why we've been having a meeting like this, because we know that it's important to get everybody on board and help you understand where we are. The point is, Jesus was on a mission, and he has called us to continue what he started. And that's what we're about around here. And as I said this past Sunday, the good news of the gospel has not reached its final destination. If somebody you know, or someone in your family, or someone in your workplace, or someone at your school, or in the community still hasn't had the opportunity to hear that they've been invited into God's family. And, the gospel is good news only when you really understand there's bad news. And for the good news to matter, it is important that we get it to those who need to hear it in time. That's why time is of the essence. And that's why we're so passionate about moving ahead at this time, because we have sensed the Lord's leading. And I want you to hear that message loud and clear tonight. This has been one of those things that has generated lots of inner turmoil. It has driven us to our knees. We've sought the Lord. We've come together. We've talked. We've prayed. We've processed. We've consulted. And, I would happily let you know that our staff and our leadership team is unanimous in their support of this decision that we came to corporately. And we realize God is stretching us. He does that. Sometimes the life of faith, we kind of settle in and we think, well, we're going to coast for a while. That's not the life of faith. God stretches us out of our comfort zone, and he calls us to unique challenges. And in this case, we believe he's calling us to make room for more. And, we see this move as an interim move. We're currently partnering with this firm to help us process the needs for the facility and trying to figure out how we can accommodate a growing congregation and meet needs that remain unmet. And even in this relocation. And we believe this move will help us to continue the growth pattern that we've been on. And while we're looking for a permanent solution that is, anticipated in the coming months and years. And so the point is, there's a lot more that could be said. You're going to get answers to some of your questions on the FAQ sheet that'll be handed out as you're leaving tonight. We'll also post that document online when the video of today's session has been posted. We're going to do that Sunday afternoon because we want to do it after we share some more things on Sunday morning in the worship service as a part of the I'm In series. And so you'll hear more about that Sunday. And so Brother Llewellyn now is going to give us a little bit of information in regard to timelines as we head into the month of April. Okay.
So when we determined several weeks back that we felt like this was the best course for the church to carry out the vision God's given us for the future, then the question of when do we make this happen came about. Well, of course, for the church, Super Bowl Sunday for the church is Easter, right? That's when everybody wants to be in worship. And so we thought, could it be possible that we could make this transition happen by then so that we could be in new space, celebrating together in a larger gathering, accommodate the increased attendance by Easter Sunday. And one of our beloved staff members who will remain nameless, we handed him a paper bag so he could breathe into it because he was thinking of the rush to get that done. It will be a compressed timeline, to be sure, but our goal, our purpose is to be in that space Easter Sunday. Now, we thought, Easter Sunday is a tough time to be doing it for the first time. So what if we could be in there a week before that.
And you're killing me.
So we determined really that that was the better plan, which compressed that already compressed timeline even further. We're working with some great vendors and a group of dedicated volunteers that are all in to make that happen. My esteemed colleague on the far left is doing an incredible work in pulling all of that together. And so our goal is to be in there celebrating the 5th, but the 5th is going to be such a special day. It almost is equal to Easter because we're calling that a celebration Sunday. Our last service in this room will be the last Sunday of this month, and it will be in a normal service. As soon as that's over, we're going to be carting chairs and tearing down equipment and lights and transforming, shoving everything over into the family center to get us ready. On the 5th of April, we're going to invite the whole congregation back into this room. There won't be any chairs. It'll be a stripped-down version. And we're going to start here, and we're going to start by celebrating what God has done in this room over the last, how many years? Almost 50, 50 plus, over 50. And we're going to have a time of celebration here. And then as a church family, we're going to all be together, kids, adults, everybody. We're going to walk as a church family over into our new space during that service and celebrate what God's going to do in an incredible new space. And it's going to be a day of celebrating for sure. We're going to be celebrating the conclusion of our last Rooted group. We're going to celebrate with baptisms, kids, adults, students. It's going to be a day of celebration that you will not want to miss. Everything won't be just perfect. We're going to live in the mess for a little bit, and it'll transition us right into Easter Sunday when we celebrate the greatest event that ever happened in the history of mankind. So we're pretty pumped about this, if you can't tell. We're excited and looking forward to it. It's going to be filled with a lot of work, but we're up for it. We're in. And if you want to help out in some fashion, we'd love to have you engaged with us in that process. Reach out to the church office, and we'd be glad to help you walk through that. So, we are, in just a minute, in a couple minutes, we're going to dismiss you from this room. And if you are a part of a ministry group, we invited all ministry leaders here. So if you're a part of a ministry group, we're going to have some breakout sessions where you can go and find out some specifics about how this change will impact your specific ministry area. So if you're a greeter, you'll go to one room. So we'll cover that in just a minute. But before we do that, we wanted to give an opportunity, if there are any questions that are banging around in your head that you'd like answers to at a high level, not ministry specific, we'd love to address those before we get out of here. And guys, before we do that, anything that any of us have forgotten along the way? Yeah. Oh yeah, that's good. Cool. Good thought.
What's that?
Yeah, this is going to, yeah.
I'm kidding.
Never seen that before, have you?
We've been hurrying.
This is the layout of the Family Center once we get over there. So it'll be oriented a little bit differently than you might perceive. It's not going to be a long, narrow seating. We're going to seat that, arrange the seating in a kind of a fan shape around a stage that'll be in the middle of the wall, the north wall. So we'll be gathered kind of around that. And as you look at that diagram, the kitchen's there on your left, and the current stage is on your right. It's that little box. So these will be available for you as you leave as well, because I know you can't necessarily, you think about it later and think, what was that? How was that arranged? So those will be available for you as you leave to pick up. as well as an FAQ sheet. I think we mentioned that earlier. And that diagram's in there as well. So good, thanks. Yeah, before we break up and go to breakout groups, any questions of a high nature here? I see a couple hands. Yeah, Terry. That's a great question.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great question. Terry asked, how are we going to address the parking issues? So we have a couple of options that are available for us. We're going to we do this with Easter and Christmas. We're going to start doing this on a consistent basis with all of our folks, especially folks who are serving 1 hour and worshiping another hour. We're going to encourage them to park at Fostech across the street so that will free up spaces in our current lot. As the weather warms up and gets better, we also have the ability to park on what was the Ball Diamond on the east side of the property, closer to the family center. So we'll utilize those two opportunities to increase the parking capacity because that's a real crunch point. Yeah. Susan.
For folks who have reserved the family center for different reasons, are they just going to have to tear down and set back up before and after those things? Or is it still going to be available for people to use?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are doing our very best to accommodate all those requests. May not necessarily be in the family center. It just depends on the size of the gathering and the purpose of the gathering. But we have several functions that are housed there and have reserved space. So we're going to do our very best to accommodate all of those in some form or fashion. And we really waited until after this weekend to start contacting those folks because we wanted to get this word out first. But then we'll be in contact with those folks to work out all the dynamics of how that stuff gets scheduled. I know one of the groups that's used our facility for quite a while is Inter Courts. They've done basketball stuff here for a long time. It's been a long, good, solid relationship. We did meet with them ahead of time to let them know what our plans were. And I know Tim Goodpastor runs that ministry. And we prayed after we left and said, stay in touch, let's know. And within 24 hours, he had landed a new facility for Inter Courts that's going to be rent-free, and he's pretty excited about it. So God continues to pave the way for these transitions.
Exactly. In the back, Joel, we've got a couple hands. Brandy.
How are these changes going to affect those who vote in the family center? Yes.
The voting, there'll still be places available to utilize large spaces, and we can, we'll address that as, it goes along.
Okay, so the polling place won't be moving then?
No.
We don't anticipate that, yep.
So keep in mind that room is still all chairs, so it is all portable. So it is still a multi-purpose space.
Was there another question right there in the back corner, I thought? Maybe not. Okay, come on up, Crystal, over on the side there.
I've been to services that's been in a gymnasium, well, just like the family center, and the acoustics have been awful. Have you tested the acoustics over there? Okay.
Joel can actually speak to that one.
So we work with Force Technology Solutions out of Indianapolis, well-known company. If you've ever heard of Traders Point Church or Northview Christian Church, all of those churches work with Force. So a very experienced company. When we began to really look at this option as rising to the top, they came down to look at this space with us. And he walked in the room and he said, interesting. And I said, what's that? He said, you have an acoustical drop ceiling in a gymnasium. He said, hardly ever happens. They're really not great for gymnasiums because balls hit them and they break, and really it's kind of a terrible solution for a gymnasium. Shocked you have this. Great solution, he said, for worship. He said also in gymnasiums, you don't usually have drywall walls. Both of your end walls are, for the most part, drywall, and halfway up on both sides are drywall. All of those things are sound absorbent. He said the only better thing would be is if you have nice padded chairs you're going to put in here. I said, we are. So he said, honestly, he said your acoustics in that space, because of the way it's built, will actually be better than your acoustics in your current worship space. Because he said you have very high and you have very low and lots of hard things for sound to bounce off of above that. So he said, honestly, the room probably, when we get finished, may need very little acoustical treatment, if any. And he said, we'll address that once we get the PA in. So great question.
It is. And that makes it worth the last 40 years of putting all those ceiling tiles back from volleyballs and basketballs hitting them. But see how the Lord has taken care of us and provided a way once more. Okay, somebody else?
What are the plans for the old sanctuary?
Great question.
Go ahead.
Well, we have lots of things that we're considering. Obviously, we're going to be relocating some student youth activities out of the family center that could be utilized in this space. Also, one of the things that you heard we heard through focus groups and the TCI survey a little bit was the need to help bring all children's ministry kind of on the main floor, to lose the handicap accessibility issue that we have with the stairs. And so that is a possibility as well. So we're still investigating what some of those possibilities are. This room won't sit empty. It's prime real estate, and so we'll be utilizing it.
And one of the things with those of us that have not dropped off children, for instance, in the preschool or elementary areas, we don't realize what the bottleneck is like. We don't know what it's like to climb those stairs and drag 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids up them and then deal with the lines and the congestion. And so there's a lot of traffic things and accessibility things that this is going to help address. It's more of a comprehensive solution than you might think. And so these are all wonderful questions. So, and a lot of this will evolve as time goes on. We've got one up here, Joel. There'll be more information coming available, and I'll be honest with you, we don't have an answer to every question right now. We're just kind of finding our way along, but God's helping us, and we're thankful. Okay, go ahead. I can't see who that is. Oh, Jennifer. Okay.
So you're talking about this as a short-term solution that sounds like it's already running into basketball season next year. What is your estimated time frame for coming up with the longer-term solution?
Okay, good. You want to?
Go ahead.
Come on, let's. Short term, when you think about 120-year history, whatever we resolve to do is going to take months. I mean, if that involved a building program, months. A renovation program, months. We're meeting with Aspen this coming week to begin to address some of those solutions. So we certainly know this is going to be a year, 18 months, maybe as much as 2 years. I don't know. That's one of those things. We definitely are anticipating it's going to be a while, and we believe it'll facilitate growth that may necessitate other things. And so we're kind of learning to shift on the go. One of the things I got to tell you that I love about our church, and it is God's church, but we're a part of this particular body of believers, is the willingness to adapt and change and roll with the flow and work through some of the challenges that are ahead. And we've done that before. We'll be doing that again, and God's going to help us, and we're going to do it together. And so I appreciate the patience of everyone as we try to navigate some of those things. One thing I wanted to be sure that got said, somebody on the board made the statement the other day. They said, man, this is all happening at Easter, but there's no way this transition is going to upstage Easter. And I thought, man, we're coming together to celebrate something that is so meaningful. It's what gives us our hope, and it's why we have such joy. And man, to think about the opportunity to expand our reach like this is going to help us. It's just exciting to me. And I was sitting here listening to everybody talk, and I was thinking about, I don't want to get choked up, so I'm going to try to hold it together because I know we're out of time. But man, you guys, to come on a rainy Thursday night to be here for this meeting have said, I care. I care about what's going on there at the point. I want to be a part of this. And I just want to say how much I appreciate that. And I thank you because you're influencers. And I'm going to tell you, I've shared this with every board that we've had over the 18 years I've been here. I've shared it in First Steps. As influencers, all of us carry a couple of buckets. How many of you think, I've heard this talk 100 times, water and gas? You know, and as we go along, things are said and done, and people, hey, I'm excited about what's going on. They're talking that talk, kind of like Steve Salo was mentioning earlier, and that's the kind of conversation, that's a little spark we want to pour gas on, and we celebrate those things. And it's going to be easy, and we've talked about this on staff, that we could kind of get around and say, oh man, this is killing us, and the timeline, and this and that, and whatever. And it's like those are the things we kind of need to pour a little water on. Put those out, and you'll have opportunity, because here's the thing. There's over 100 people here tonight that have gathered and heard some facts that a lot of people aren't going to hear. They're just going to know we're moving. Well, why are we moving? I don't like to move, whatever. And so it's going to be up to you to be an influencer. Step in and kind of guide those conversations in the right direction, because, we are a part of something that's bigger than us, and it's not about our comfort. It's not about our convenience. It's about fulfilling a mission, and we are a church on a mission. And we intend to do everything we can short of sin to see to it that every man, woman, boy, and girl in Jackson, Jennings, and Bartholomew counties gets a chance to know that Jesus Christ is available to them to be their Savior, and He paid the price for them to spend eternity with them in heaven. And that's what this is all about. And so that's the big picture. So whenever we get to the place where it's like, yeah, but this is going to be a little uncomfortable or a problem or whatever, hey, there's going to be some confusion. You're going to show up and you're going to have to, go to the other building when you came over here or something. Things are going to happen, okay? But let's just keep it in perspective. And let's help others to do the same right here in the middle. Oh, okay, we've got a couple. Good. Jerry?
As already been alluded to, this is not a new problem. As Jeff alluded, it's been months. Could you give us a little insight on the reason or the planning behind all the investments that's been made just in the last few months in the foyer, the platform, and all that, with this in mind that we're going to have to do something drastic and have all this investment that we've just recently made?
It's a great question too, and Jeff may have some things he wants to say to this, but I would tell you, we've been doing the best we could with what we knew at the moment, and those were processes that have been in place for a long time. And I was walking through the lobby the other day, and I was thinking about that very thing, because I want to be good stewards of the resources God's given us. But let's look at it this way. If we were saying this is our new check-in area and lobby area for our children's ministries, for instance, don't we want it to be just as nice as we can make it? And so the stuff we've got in here, Joel's worked it out where we're going to move almost everything that we have that we're using now that's enabled us to get to where we are to the other building. And so it's really not a loss, really for the stuff. It's been one of those things that I think what we've got in place is going to be meaningful and useful, in the other space as well. And what's here is still going to be valuable too.
Yeah, and we're never, even if we move to interim space in the family center and then whatever the next plan is after that, if the church is doing what the church is supposed to be doing, we're never going to be done. We're always going to be in a phase of renovation, expansion, development, and so we can't rest on projects that we get completed and say, well, we're done now. Yep. Because we're always going to be growing if we're carrying out the Great Commission.
Okay, got one up here, Chris.
One last thing. If you look at our numbers, it was really just last April that we really started to spike and really started to sustain those numbers. So while we have been growing, the greatest amount of growth has occurred in the last 9 months, 9 to 10 months. So I think the reaction is been appropriate.
Yeah, and you know, the at the movie series in July, things really spiked. We didn't have a summer slump. We had a summer hump, and it continued, and then we went up again at Christmas, and it stayed up. Joel, right up here on row 2. So great points. Thanks, Steve. Chris?
So speaking on what Jerry said and what Jeff said, looking at the numbers, right now this area seats about 450 people, give or take. So if we're getting 200 more people out there across the way, then we're going to be up around 1,200 seating capacity, 1,300.
Potential.
What are we doing in the planning stage to make sure that we're not having this conversation, say 2023, when we're projected to have 900 people?
Yep. Well, we hope that's the case, and you know, we're going to do as much as we can do in that interim time to be able to respond to the needs around us and to meet the needs of as many people as we possibly can. I mean, our capacity, you know, we're trying to use our resources up the best we know how, and I think every staff member would say, yeah, that's the truth. They're wringing every drop out of me. But you know, we do that with our facilities, we do that with our equipment, we do that with everything, and so great point, and we're trying to anticipate that. The beauty of it is a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road, there will be people that we don't even know yet that will be in these seats and a part of this conversation and helping us to achieve, you know, on the next level as God directs. Go ahead.
And part of what we're doing with Aspen too is to help us leapfrog ahead of what this interim move will accommodate for us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think sometimes what we don't realize in our mind is that which God wants for us. He wants more for us than we want ourselves. And I remember coming to the church, and we were talking about like transitioning worship and all that was going to happen. I remember Pastor Green saying, well, how are you going to do this? And I said, I don't know. I said, God's going to bring everything that we need. And he did. And he provided. And I think it's the same thing with God. God may take us to 1,200, and then I think God's going to provide beyond that. And whatever that looks like and whatever that is, he's going to bring more people and going to bring more resources and going to bring everything that we need to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. And so I think these are the times where I go, this stuff scares me to death. But I know that God's bigger than all of it, and all of my faith and hope and trust is in him. And so, God, do your thing.
And you've heard me use this before, the analogy. You know, when I go out of here in a little bit and get in my truck to go home, when I turn the lights on, I'm not going to be able to see my house. But I'm going to start driving and all the light that I have, and the light keeps moving, and we'll keep getting closer until pretty soon the lights are going to hit my garage door. And that's the way we're approaching this, you know, to be quite honest. But great. We're going to do one more question. Okay, we've got 2 people with microphones. We'll do those. I'm going to wrap it and pray. We went quite a bit longer. It's been excellent, and I thank you again. But I think we need to bring that to a close, so we've got some time for the breakouts for those who can stick around and want to be a part of that. So we'll go to Vera, and then who do we have over here? Cheryl, okay? Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a multi-question.
No,
so
wait
it's
a
more
minute
than 2
here.
questions.
Yeah, 3-part question. Wait a minute.
So my first question is, and I'll ask them both together, and then you guys can answer. But I like the new stage that you guys put up, but the altar, the way you kneel and stuff is kind of awkward. What is the plan for altar over there? That's the first question. And then the second question is, I'm going to ask the question that probably everybody in here is wondering. What's it going to cost us?
Okay. You can have that one.
Are you going to take the altar?
I'm going to the bathroom. I'll be back.
Do what? Yep, sure. You want me to take
Thanks
that
a
one
lot,
first?
Vera. You just do it.
Can I
You're
ask?
good.
Can I ask mine first, because it ties into that, and then you can answer it all together.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I come from a banking background, and so I wondered if the church has a debt. I don't know anything about the church finances and how that ties in.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yep, that's a great question. All 3 of them are from 2 people. We do have current debt. that we're paying down on we're paying ahead on that. It's about 600,000 now. John, you're back there? Yep.
Yeah.
Around that. So we will continue to paying on that. As far as the cost for this, we are making this move because it's probably the most cost-efficient move that we can make. The board has authorized us, excuse me, to borrow up to $250,000 to make that move. We have other resources as far as reserves that we will tap into as well. That came out of work we did with Cape and Krause, an auditing firm a couple years ago that helped really shore up our financial picture for us moving forward. So we have some reserves that are built in. Plus, we're going to be asking the congregation to step in and help contribute toward the cost of moving our equipment and furnishings over there. And I know 250K is a lot of money. And this is not an inexpensive move. But when you put it in light of a new worship facility for 600 folks, it's not really as expensive as it sounds initially. So most all of that, excuse me, is in technology, audio, visual, sound, lighting, all of that kind of stuff to augment what we have in this building to fill that space. So that's kind of what we're doing there. And your question about the altar is a good one. And Steve said we don't have the answer to every question. That's one of them. You get the prize for asking the question we don't have the answer to.
Yeah.
So, Vera?
There's another prize she gets.
What is that?
And Cheryl gets it too. I was going to mention online right now on our online giving portal and on the website, you can go to Make Room for More and you can contribute there to help out. And so if you ladies would both jump on and be number 1 and 2 and set the pace, that would be awesome. We would appreciate that.
Yeah.
But now together we're going to get the job done. God's going to help us. And as I've started out, and I've said it a couple of times, these are exciting days. And I'm going to take you back before I pray to a scripture that some of you are going to hear, and it's going to trigger something because you've heard me reference it. It has been on our prayer partner bulletin. We've talked about it numerous times over the last 18 years. It's found in Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 5. And it says, "Look at the nations and watch, and be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told." I'm telling you what, folks, God is at work. He's on the move. I hear from people all the time that just tell me, I can't believe what God's doing in Seymour, Indiana. And I tell them, me either. Me either. And, I'm telling you, he gets all the praise, the glory, and the honor for the great things that are happening, and we celebrate that tonight. Thank you again for being here. Do we need to tell people where to meet, or do they know?
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead.
We've got a slide that'll come up that'll show you breakouts. And so if you're in any particular ministry area, you can go to those rooms. 120 and 121 is down the hall, in case you're unfamiliar with that, all the way to the end on the right. And we have quite a few groups in there, meeting in there. Conference room for the safety team here on your right as you go out into the lobby. Arts department will be in Joel's office, and kids, students, nursery will be upstairs in Discover Factory. Now, if you're not in one of those ministry areas and you've still got a burning question that you just didn't ask or we ran out of time for, we've got board and staff members that'll stay in the room down here in front. So feel free to make your way there and ask those questions. And then we'll dismiss from our breakouts. So,
okay, let's pray. Father, thanks for this time we've had together. I know we've gone longer than expected, and I ask for grace for all that, because we're talking about weighty, important matters here that affect us all on some different levels. And today, we just want to give you the praise for what we've heard, what we've seen, what we celebrate, so many good things. And Lord, I just pray for boldness and courage as we go forward. I pray you'll open the doors that need to be opened, that you will make provision for all that needs to be done. And that you'll continue to give us wisdom and insight beyond ourselves. We're trusting you. We are here today because we decided we're going to pray and obey. That's all. That's the formula. We're going to pray. We're going to seek your face. And as you lead us, we're going to step out and we're going to honor you by obeying you and walking where you call us to walk. And it's a faith journey. And it has been a wonderful journey thus far. And we are excited about the future. And we corporately give you praise tonight for the people, the men and women and the boys and girls whose lives will be changed, whose souls will be saved, whose eternity will be impacted because of the decisions that are being made right now. We give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless. Thanks again, everybody, for being here tonight.